This is Hoof number 10, in for a customer repair. I think it was a switch. It was one of the spray painted ones. Definitely drilled this by hand because this knob is slightly higher than this knob. This is one of the, there's very few enclosures like this. And then this is the white Hoof when it switched over to being professionally powder coated. And there were, I don't know how many of these there are. I would guess at least 1,000 of them. Well, I know I made the very first one for Dan from the Black Keys. He had a green Russian Big Muff that, to me, sounded a lot cleaner than most Big Muffs. So I was trying to make something to emulate that because I really liked his. And the one that I got didn't sound like that. It was super saturated, really compressed sounding. So I just kind of took the circuit and just started building different versions of it, seeing what it sounded like, and then kind of just putting them aside until I found a combination that I liked a lot. That was pre-EarthQuaker, I think. 2005-ish, 4-ish, 2004.
Many of us have stepped on guitar pedals over the years and are quite used to the way they sound, but not too many of us have actually taken a look at what is going on with the electrons inside. So today what I'd like to do is take a signal generator, which will represent our guitar's audio signal, and an oscilloscope, which I dragged out of my own basement, to give you a visual reference of what actually happens to the electrons as they travel through the stages of a pedal. We need some audio to feed the Hoof, and for purposes of analysis, we are going to use a 250 millivolt AC signal similar to the output of an electric guitar. Here is our 1 kilohertz test signal as a visual reference. Bling! Notice that the wave shape is even in peak and trough and looks pretty groovy. This is our sine wave representing the guitar signal. Through feedback, a property of gain control, we start to clip the test signal. Check it out as I raise the fuzz control. This is where the clipping diodes start to do their thing, slightly chopping the peak and troughs at their utmost extremes. This visual reference translates to distortion in our ears. I've included a visual representation again of the input signal. Let's look at the output of the Hoof. Looking pretty severe as far as clipping on both sides of the waveform. Now let's superimpose the input and the output so you can get a visual indication of what they look like together. I'd say this fuzz is pretty unruly.
I mean, shortly after I think I landed on what became that circuit, I started putting them up on eBay. And the very first one didn't have any graphics at all. It was just in a big gold box and just said Hoof on it. 3 knobs. There was no shift control at that point. It had preset mids. It was at that point that somebody had posted a video on a Harmony Central forum of Dan playing. I think it was in Boston at a place called Avalon Theater. And they're like, well, what is this pedal he's using? It sounds huge. And it was the first version of the Hoof. And I just kind of wrote, oh, I made that pedal. And then people started asking if they could buy them. And then that's when I made them with like the graphics. So I think probably like the first 20 or so were probably sold on Harmony Central before I started putting them up on eBay. Shortly after that, I think the winter of 2005, 2006 is when I added some more pedals to the line. So by that point, it must have been doing okay, from what I can remember. I remember being very busy that winter.
I thought about shaving my head today.
You should have.
I should have. I didn't realize I was going to be on camera. This is the original home of EarthQuaker devices in Jamie's basement. Where this drum set is, there used to be a water heater, and Jamie would be set up there. When I got hired, my station was over there. Assembly was right here. All of the drilling, screen printing, and then the inventory of all the old parts was here. Fedge was over there against that wall.
Comfortable?
Yeah, I think so. This is how I'd be sitting if it was the morning as reading comic books. I made a lot of Hoofs. Yeah, when I first started, it was just me and Jamie, and my first day, I went over to his house, and he still just worked in his computer room. It was in his living room. So he built like 2 desks down in the basement, and we both had these nice L desks, that were very efficient for the style of production we were doing.
When I first started making the pedals, I mean, they were all spray painted, and the graphics were water slide decals. I didn't have a drill press, so I was drilling things by hand. So I would spray paint these, and that was like a learning curve. Like I wasn't, you know, who's an awesome spray painter? Like, not me. I became one. And then I would literally just take this cordless drill I had and just hold the thing down and just like try to drill them, and they would like always grab the enclosures and spin around and stuff. So it was like a huge learning curve for me on like how to just make everything look exactly the same every single time.
Now the process is we have these jigs and like a 4x4 panel, so there's 4 hooves on one panel, and a person puts all the parts in, and then they go and they get dipped in a molten bath, and then they go through a cutting machine, and then they get cleaned in these ultrasonic cleaners, and they go into heater. And then it goes through a QC step where they clean it up and they put pots on, and they put like a battery snap in. Then it gets assembled, and then it gets wired. So the final 2 stages are the same basically, except we move from a large array of wires that all went through like a mechanical switch to a switch that just is momentary, and it sends a pulse to a relay, and the relay flips the pedal on.
I definitely consider the Hoof the flagship pedal for EarthQuaker. I mean, aside from it being pretty much the first, I mean, it's definitely the first pedal that came out. There were some pedals that came out with it, but that was the only one that stuck. It's still in production. It's the pedal that I really learned how to build, like manufacture pedals on. Like, you know, it's the first circuit board that I had professionally made. I mean, it's how I learned how to spray paint correctly and, you know, apply graphics and all that. All of those things were like first done on a Hoof.